Okay, I guess that's Roseanne's way of telling us time to get started. So she has started the taping of the program. Looks like we have about 10 people on. Ms. Hart, yep, we heard you. Virtual is better. Happy New Year, everybody. Glad you all could come. Hope that you have received the email information that had what we were going to do today and also had some visuals with it as well. If by chance you are on here and somebody told you about it and you are not actually on the database for District 33, Roseanne Hayes is the person that you email your information to, and she will make sure that you are in the District 33 database. So again, hi everyone. And this is a project on 5995 Mount View Road. And this is Mr. Roy Dale. He has been presenting in front of us before, so he is going to be the one to do the information, and you all will have a chance to ask questions. Roy, if you see like a little hand go up on your thing, you know that that's somebody. Okay, yeah, so we will try to keep up with that. And what I will say to you is if you have your hand up and we haven't seen it, it's okay just to say, excuse me, I have a question, and then we can get the question in. So I'm going to turn it over to you now.
All right. Thank you, council member. I greatly appreciate it. I always like talking to people in Antioch. It's where I went to high school a long time ago. I graduated from Antioch in 1971. And so we barely had an interstate. And it was all rural area. And, you know, it's just a bunch of country boys out there. And so, but it's a very fond memories of the Antioch area, and my goodness, how it's grown. And Antioch, as I knew, it's totally different in a different location. I mean, Antioch was at Antioch High School, and I'm not sure where Antioch really is right now. It's all over the place, I guess. So I'm going to hopefully share this screen. Can everybody see that? Okay, awesome. So this meeting today is going to be, it's going to be a little bit of educational meeting, I think, a little bit, because this is a little unusual. And so we can take it slow. If there's questions that come up along the way, just stop me and we'll pause, because I may get, as an engineer, I may get a little too complicated, and we'll try not to do that. And we'll try to keep this very simple. So the property that we're looking at is this darker triangle of property here on Mount View Road. This is Murfreesboro Road, and this is Mount View Road. And there's a large multifamily development currently under construction. I haven't been out there, so I really don't know if it's near completion or if it's actually occupied, but there's a large multifamily development on the front along Murfreesboro Road and the intersection of Mount View Road. So this property is about 10 acres. It is within what's called an urban design overlay. And I'm glad we have the council member and John Stern here to help out, because we probably don't have that many UDOs. It may be a little complicated to understand. We do have one very successful urban design overlay at Lenox Village. And in Lenox Village, you'll see a lot of different types of uses, different types of buildings, single family attached, single family detached, multifamily, commercial, pretty much everything that you could think of. An urban design overlay is really set up to almost be a community to itself. And these UDOs, I guess some of the very embryonic design overlays were like in Florida, like Seaside, or areas where you would see in Southern Florida, that was done by, I think, as an architect by the name of Dwani, I believe. But anyway, so we don't have that many UDOs in Nashville, but we do have one right in Antioch. This UDO went through a public process. I'm going to show you. Here's sort of the cover page to the UDO, and you can see all the different sizes of lots and roads and everything that occurs here, open spaces and public spaces and public roads. But this was sort of an attempt to do a layout on this huge piece of property. Now, I'm only dealing with a small triangle of it, this little area right here. But this urban design overlay was done, looks like in 2005. It went through a public process. It went through the Planning Commission. It was adopted by the council, and it's an overlay on a large area along Murfreesboro Road and Mount View Road, and north of that. And when you have an urban design overlay, it's really sort of a zoning of its own. Everything that occurs within the overlay has to take place according to this document that you see here, which is 46 pages long. And the urban design overlay tells you what type of houses you can have, how big they are, how tall they are, what kind of materials they can be built of. It goes down to even mailboxes. Even mailboxes have to match each other. So it's a very well thought out document, but this property is just now starting to develop, and the multifamily section was the first portion to develop. So I'm going to scroll down through this urban design overlay, and I'll stop at areas that I think are more appropriate. So you can see an aerial image of the area, of the overlay area. It's in red. You see this lighter pink area. When this overlay was put into place, the people within that parcel right there opted out. So they do not, that parcel right there is not included in the urban design overlay, but everything around it is. So, so when the Planning Commission put this document together, they more or less drew a sketch of how they felt like this would lay out. They set up a roadway pattern. They set up where the multifamily would be. This looks like a commercial area along Mount View Road. They wanted that to be townhouses, attached multifamily, which I already know that y'all don't want. And we're going to discuss that and how we can avoid that. And most everything else, I think, is pretty much single family detached. Looks like they also had some multifamily attachments in this location here. So, so this more or less are just images of what this urban design overlay, once it was developed, what it would look like. So you would have streets with grass strips, curbs and gutters. You'll see mixtures of housing types. There has to be really good vehicular circulation. I think that they may have even put some traffic calming within this. We'll look at that in just a second, and something I know we want to discuss. When this urban design overlay is developed fully out, it's going to have bike trails and walkable areas and little pocket parks. And so at the end of the day, it will be more or less a community of its own. This shows more or less a commercial area and how you would have parking there. There's some more attached units, which I know we don't want. When the property is developed, there are mechanisms within the UDO that require extensive landscaping, and it all has to be consistent with similar tree materials and plant materials so that it's nice and cohesive throughout the development. Even in the public spaces, the commercial spaces, even signage is controlled. There would not be any tall signage. Everything would be short monument signs and artistic signs. And here's the different building types around some parks and open space. So I'm going to go down to more or less our area. And this little spot right here is the area that my client is looking at wanting to develop. And I'm going to go down to sort of a road network. Okay, and so this is the area that he wants to develop. And you can see how they established a road network in green and yellow. And if you look at the chart to the left, the yellow is sort of a low density roadway, and the green is a medium density roadway. The corridors that go through the center of the properties, which would be the main corridors, would be connectors, and those would be wider streets and probably wider grass strips. But when this plan was put together, you see this little square right here. That's a church. And to the right of that church was a cemetery. And to the left of that church was a parking lot. And so when planning put this concept together, they didn't realize that that connection is never going to occur, cannot occur. So that connection is not going to occur. So as I looked at this little piece of this UDO, I took that in consideration. And I'm going to go down to that right now. And then we'll go back up. You're probably going to get a little dizzy here. But everything is just within this document that we need. So this shows how the roadway network was to be established, but that can't take place. So what I did was I looked at the area right here and I tried to more or less morph that and create the minor connections here, and the somewhat not quite minor. It was a medium density residential right here. And Councilmember Lee, when I met with you probably a month or so ago, we talked about this. And I think within this area, I think maybe you wanted to have some kind of traffic calming. I believe we sort of talked about that a little bit. And so we're going to discuss that tonight and possibly incorporate something in this plan, whether it be a turnaround or whatever would be best, because ultimately this road would connect to the subdivision above to the north, and it could be another connection to that subdivision. So you could have probably more traffic than what would be anticipated here. And in order to discourage that or slow it down, probably putting some kind of a roundabout in this area would be a good idea.
Roy,
so I'm going to go back.
You're probably going to answer these, but because somebody put them in the chat and I saw them before we forget about them, I just want to ask.
We could slow down.
Somebody wanted to know about how many built units were you thinking about? What would the price range be? And is there more than one way in and out? Those were three of the questions that were up in there.
Okay, I will remember those, and in just a second, I'm going to answer those questions.
Yeah, I thought you would. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's perfect, and I appreciate you bringing that to my attention, because I will try to find the right spot to insert those answers. So what you see before me right now is the current urban design overlay, and within this overlay, you see all these different tones of yellows and browns and red and even get into a magenta. And so if we look at the area that I have highlighted in black, you can see within this space, there were more or less 4 different building types. The yellow, which abuts a subdivision to the north, was going to be homes, just single family homes, larger lots. The area south of that, which is the darker yellow, are still single family. They're more or less served off of an alley, but the brown area here, when this plan was put together, that was intended to be attached units, townhouses. And of course, when I met with you, council member, and many of the meetings that I've had in this area, that's just something that I think you'd like to avoid. So what I have done here is put a plan together that would revise the urban design overlay. And so I'm going to go back to one of your questions. Originally, when I started looking at this, I was going to submit a specific plan that showed a specific layout. And when I sent it to the Planning Commission, they said, you can't do that. An urban design overlay is the document in itself which determines how the property would develop. So the base zoning that goes with this urban design overlay is RM9. Well, that confuses a lot of people, because a lot of people say, well, that means multifamily. Well, not necessarily. So if you have a parcel of land, let's say it's zoned for a duplex, and you don't have to connect buildings anymore, you can separate them. You would have a large parcel of land on one lot with 2 individual large homes. And in Metro's nomenclature, that's multifamily. And the reason it's multifamily is because it has 2 or more units on one parcel of land. It doesn't mean that they're attached. And so when this went to the Planning Commission, and Planning Commission made a recommendation of the RM9 zoning, which is what goes with the overlay, it confused a lot of people. And so because you're looking at a zoning bill that says RM9. Well, the RM9 is what's required to make this work. So in order to purify that, I would go back and change the urban design overlay, and this is what we would change it to, that basically says the area, more or less in orange we'll call it, is limited to single family cottage courtyards, and I'll show you what those buildings are. So those are detached units, they're not attached units. What's going to happen on this development is the individual that's building this it's not like a Beezer Homes, or it's not like Goodall. It's not a tract builder. These lots will be developed and they will be custom. Each of these houses will be built towards an individual that wants to build in this area, and the houses will be designed for them based upon their particular needs. And they will be done based upon the criteria that are established within the urban design overlay, so that you make sure that the materials are consistent, the heights are consistent, but you're not going to have cookie cutter houses that will look pretty much different. I don't know how often people go over to the Green Hills area, but there's a development on Glen Echo. There are smaller lots, houses in there off an alley, and every house is different. And that's what the intention is here, is to create something that is unique and something that from a price perspective is going to more be probably in the longs of $400,000 or $500,000, even up to $800,000. So these houses are custom houses that would be built for the individuals. The number of lots, I did a layout on this to try to determine what I felt like would probably fit within this plan based upon what the need would be. It's probably going to be about 50 homes, and most will be on lots. The cottages would occur on one larger parcel, and they would be detached. So I think that answered the price point question. I think that answered the number of units question. And there was one other. What was the other? Did I miss something?
Was there only one way? Was there only one way in and out? But there was another question that I forgot, was about if any of them will be low income.
No. These would be, like I said, these lots would be developed. What would happen is that they'll go in there, they'll put the roads, the water, the sewer, the lots, everything. And then as someone comes online to build a house, those homes will be custom built. There will be an architectural committee here to review that. It primarily would be made up of people that would live within this development, but I don't see any reason why it couldn't extend to adjacent property owners if need be. So this would have access off of Mount View Road, but also have access to the subdivision to the north. And you'd have to have 2 points of access. Anything over 30 units has to have 2 points of access. You can avoid that sometimes if you sprinkle. You can probably go over 30, but this UDO is designed to make connectivity. But when those connections occur, there needs to be something put into place to limit the speed and to calm the traffic. So, so what I had proposed to do, and I think I talked about this, council member. Well, I've been working on this about 2 years. COVID has been quite interesting. So what you see on this spreadsheet that I'm showing you from this point down would be what I would submit to the Planning Commission. And what I'm saying, this first page, it says, here is your current design overlay. And you can see it's got all these sub-districts. I'm going to go into those and show you what each of these sub-districts does. And what I also did here is an aerial image that shows the church and the cemetery that basically says, look, guys, you can't extend a road here. You can see a road connection to the north, which would be Seabiscuit. So there would be a connection at Mount View, and it would be connected to Seabiscuit. So you have 2 points of access according to this layout right here. So I'm going to show you what would be allowed to be built within this section of the UDO. It would be houses classified as sub-district 1, houses classified as sub-district 2, and cottages defined as sub-district 5. So I'm going to go up here. I'm going to show you what these would look like, or at least the parameters of which you would have to design from. So this is sub-district 1. You can see a minimum lot is 7,500 square feet. It has to have a 20-foot setback. The setbacks on the side are 10 feet and 10 feet. The rear setback is 20 feet. It can be no greater than 3 stories, and The lot coverage can be no greater than 1,600 square feet. The parking, you have to have 2 spaces per bedroom and 1 space for a third bedroom. It has to have a raised foundation, and the buildings will more or less look like this. So those are just typical, like, single family houses that you would probably see scattered throughout the city. And those homes would actually be built adjacent to that existing subdivision to the north, and this, I told you you're going to get dizzy, in this yellow area right here. Now, as you come away from that, you would be going to Subdistrict 2. And all of these homes would be, there would be no roadways or access from the street. Everything would be from the alleys in the rear. So if you were to walk down that street, you would not pass a single driveway. All the access would be from the rear, and there would be enclosed parking structures. The minimum lot size is 5,000 square feet. The setbacks are similar. A front setback of 20, the sides are 10. The rear is not as much because you have an alley. And so that the parking garage is going to be close to the alley. It still has a raised foundation, and it's got all other types of architectural standards and requirements. So that would be in Subdistrict 2. And then finally, the Subdistrict 5, where Metro had intended all this to be townhouses, we're proposing them to be cottages. And it would be cottage courtyards. And you can see these are smaller houses. They still can be 3 stories, although probably wouldn't be. And they all more or less front on courtyards or open space, and they have access off an alley, and they're all detached. So you have 3 different types of buildings here: large, conventional, single-family homes, smaller single-family homes served off an alley with a rear garage, and then next to Mount View Road, instead of having townhouses, you'd have courtyard homes that are surrounded by open space facing on courtyards. So, there are all kinds of architectural standards here, and I can give you access to this UDO document, and anybody that wants to look at it. Vinyl siding cannot be used. Homes have to be predominantly brick. Even windows and balconies are controlled. Even if you have shutters, there's a design for those. So it's a very well thought out document. You can't have windows that protrude out from buildings like that. So it's a very well precisely put together document that was done again in 2005. That's just starting to be implemented in the multifamily development along Murfreesboro Road. So what's proposed is that we would take this UDO revision to the Planning Commission. We would get them to adopt that. The UDO revision would not allow anything to be attached. They would all be detached units. And then it would proceed through council with the base zoning of RM9. Here's where I attempted to do maybe some kind of a layout. I don't think it's going to quite work like this. I don't think I can get as much density along these green spaces here. This had a little over 50 units, but they all met the parameters of the UDO. And actually, I went ahead, and there's a piece of property to the west of this that's owned by Reverend Finn, who runs the church across the street. And so I just went ahead and did a layout on his property as well, just to see how this would work together. Because I would hate to do a layout on a piece of property and then do something that's going to make it difficult for the next piece to also design according to the urban design overlay. So it works pretty well, as you can see. And I think that it's something that would be quite unique. It's very walkable and very urban. And I think that the houses that you see in here are going to be something you can be proud of. So I can answer questions now. And we'll cough a minute, clear my voice.
I have a couple, and then I'm gonna, is this 50 units total or 50 per subdivision? Well, I have missed this response. Okay.
Okay, so this whole development here It's about 10 acres, and I'm anticipating about 50 total units within this 10 acres. Now, let's say that as they build this, there's more demand for these lots that are shown here are probably the minimum size lots allowed within the UDO. If someone wants to build something bigger, I think that they could, as long as it didn't destroy the consistency of what's around it. So I would hate to see someone do a large lot in the center and have the smaller lots on all sides. So that will be looked at holistically as this property develops. I know that's a long answer to probably a very short question, but I'm an engineer.
I have a question about the detached units in the front. Are they for rent or are they owner?
Everything in here is owner occupied.
Okay. I am still not clear on why a single level home are no longer being built. I didn't hear, do they have the option of single level homes in here since they're all different?
Oh, let's look at that. I think that I don't know that there's let me stop at this, go to the very top here.
One of the things that was talked about was how people are aging now and they're not looking to go upstairs and do a lot of things. So there is a need for single level homes in some of the areas as well.
I sort of like that when I'm thinking about it. And I would say that, and I can think of some other developments that I've been to. There's one up there in Mount Juliet behind the shopping center that's, they're long, narrow lots. And I think they're predominantly one story. They may have a second level or a half a second level. And something like that would probably work really well on along these lots that are narrow with an alley in the rear. So there's nothing that would prohibit you from doing that. I'm not sure how it would look to have a 2 or 3 story next to a single story. I think it'd be fine. So yeah, I think you could do that. There'd be no reason why you couldn't. So if someone wants to come in here, if they're elderly like me, and they don't want to go upstairs again, then they could have a 1 story or 1.5 story house with a attached or detached rear garage, which I think would be really popular along these alley loaded streets.
So since they are designed for the people who are buying them, okay. What preparations, and I'm reading now because it popped up on my screen, are there for flooding, which may occur? Oh, it just popped down. Let's see what that said then. What preparations are there for flooding, which may occur, or sewage backup on the development?
Okay, so in Metro, actually, when I look at this plan, a council member, there is not enough open space to control stormwater. I can see that just very quickly. And so that's why I said, I think this plan may have had 58 lots on it or 58 units. You're not going to be able to achieve that because Metro has some of the strongest stormwater requirements in the United States. And you cannot develop a piece of property and increase the runoff onto the neighbor. And you're certainly not going to be developing anything that's in a flood-prone area. Metro Water Sewer Services also requires that you have letters of availability and that water and sewer service is available. And so those are all safeguard measures that Metro has when you design something, and it cannot be approved if the capacity doesn't exist or if you've not properly designed your stormwater. So most developments that have issues are developments that were done years ago. Hopefully nothing that's been done recently.
You were saying that these houses are designed for the people who are going to buy them. So then that means there won't be lots all going up and then people come in and pick from them, that they pick the lot where they're going to do and then they design how the house is made?
That's my understanding. Now, a developer might, build a house or two just so people can look at the finishes because the finishes in these houses, from what I understand, are going to be really nice. And so yeah, it's possible that they may build a model or a place for to have an office, but generally speaking, it's not a tract builder. And that's probably what you see most of in Antioch and probably throughout Davidson County is you'll have someone from Goodall or someone from Beezer that come in, they buy a piece of property and they're building these houses as quickly as they possibly can. And they're so similar. There's no, it gets a little monotonous, but within this urban design overlay, that's not really the intent. The intent is to try to create something unique, something that has some variation to it, yet some consistency as well.
I have one more, unless something pops up in the chat, and it did. Our folks are always concerned about the green space, but you were talking about, what you eating, Roy?
I had to have French fry.
You're always talking about.
Look here, Rafferty's.
Always talking about green space and that type of thing. So somebody asked a question about how much green space is there? But my question, if you can remember that, then my question is, so we really appreciate you coming and explaining this to us, because I know a lot of us don't, well, maybe I'll just speak for myself, urban, the out overlay and all of that, all of this stuff can be very confusing. So I think you're doing a very good job of explaining it to us about things already in place. And I really appreciate that. But you are not the developer. And so even if we have a conversation here, when we open it up to our folks, there is still another person that is making the decision on how these will actually look and what will actually go in, and another person who needs to answer for if things aren't done the way that the community kind of intended or thought they would be. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, obviously, there'll be a developer that would wind up doing this project. But what I would want to have you understand is that all zoning or all urban design overlays are not done based upon a particular developer. So the document itself that's prepared is what's sort of binding. So I would never be disingenuous to you. But let's say I had a person that attended this meeting tonight. He says he was the developer and he's going to do the most grandest, project. He earns your confidence and you trust him. Well, the zoning code, what goes into effect doesn't really have those. The developer's not a part of it. Let's say it's Mr. Jones. It's not Mr. Jones zoning. It's just zoning a property. And so whatever plan is put together in this urban design overlay is very well thought out. Whoever develops the property must follow those guidelines. So I don't know if that answers your question. I know it'd be nice to have a face, but I guess what I'm saying is that face could change. It could change multiple times.
And that's what my concern is too, I guess, because when we talk to somebody, if somebody's meeting with you, they've got a little more buy-in to what is being said and follow through. I'm thinking about an area up here not too far from me where some actually apartments are, and the person was supposed to finish up the front part of it, and they didn't. There was gravel there, overgrown stuff, and it was just a mess in front of the apartments. And no one can actually get in contact with him now to say, you said something was going to be done about these. It's not. Why didn't you do this? So it's better to have a person that you can contact to say, this is what you said, and you didn't do it. Why not? That face to face. But I'm going to open it up now to see if we have some other specific questions or wants or whatever dealing with this. I know Ms. Hart had several questions. I hope that I answered hers, but if other people can do that, can you confirm that your support to any development will not give final vote yes until the developer signs off on legal documents? Okay, so I know that this is an issue of Mr. Stearns, because he always wants me to push a legal document that is outside of the Metro, what's going on with Metro. I will not sign off on anything that is aside of that. And I'm not going to get into a big conversation or argument about that. But if there are certain things that we want put in there, I'm more familiar with SPs, but I know there are certain things that have to be put into the bill that says this is what they have to do, and they can't do this and they can't do that. I will most certainly sign off on that. But when we go to talk about an aside legal document that's signed off with either the HOA or a constituent that lives in the development themselves, and that legal kind of thing, which is outside the preview of Metro, I cannot sign off on that, and I won't promise to sign off on that. But if there are any things that are in that I can get put into the bill itself, then I will try to do that, Ms. Hart. So I'm going to say now, I know that there are some other people that have questions. If you would ask your questions, please.
Yeah. Good evening. Thank you, Roy. I think this is what, the second or third time you've presented this modification. And I like this UDO. I think it has a lot of substance to it. I think that what you're proposing is reasonable, given the concerns of the community. A few things, though. It's a relatively small piece of the UDO that you're building out. Last time you presented, I had asked you if you could reach out to the other property owners and see if it isn't time for them to develop their portions of the project as well, so that we don't, do little pieces and just keep the neighborhood disturbed for the next 20 years. Preferably doing it in, a 3 or 5 year period. So I'll let you answer that one if you can.
I'll turn my video back on.
And I will yes, you're back on. And I will let you know also, Melissa has had her hand up as well. Because so as you do your questions, John, I'm going to ask you to pace yourself as well so that other people can get in there. So after you, I have Melissa, and then Linda also has a hand up.
So I turned my video off so you couldn't see me eat another French fry. so anyway, so I did, John. After that meeting, I reached out to Mr. Finn, who was the property that you see to the left of this, and I don't think he has any development experience. I don't know that he knows what he wants to do or when he wants to do it. But I did try to orchestrate a conversation. But after that, I just went ahead and did a layout like you see here that would more or less show how this could occur. I will reach out back to him again. I will have the person that now owns this property reach out to him as well to see if he would like to be included in this, because it would be nicer to have another point of access off of Mount View Road. I think that would be nice to take, the access. You still want to connect to Seabiscuit, but that could be more of a secondary access. So I think that answers that question. And as far as the council member, I think that we can add conditions to the urban design overlay. And so what I'm going to do for sure is to add, some kind of a roundabout where that intersection occurs. Because that's something you had talked to me about before. And so if there's anything else that is missing, or if a group that you want to put together or work with me, I'll be more than happy to incorporate as much as I can. And there's really nothing, if we really want to think about it, I don't want to volunteer for too much, but there's really no reason why we couldn't go in and modify other sections of the UDO that have not been developed. If we're going to make a revision, we could, considered, putting some language in there that would cover future developments beyond these, which might also answer some of your questions, John, as far as how this would stage out. So who is the other person that had the question?
Okay,
Melissa?
so I have heard a lot of comments saying that they really like how how you have it fixed so individual people pick. I think that could help with that one level as well. So yes, we had Melissa and then we had Linda.
Yeah, my question, I missed most of the meeting because I was at work, but is this gonna be on the YouTube video and the YouTube channel, and when would it be available for me to catch up to where you are now?
It is being taped like the other ones. And I think did you also get the email?
I did.
Okay.
I did see that 3 of them were uploaded, but I was wondering when, because the other ones weren't uploaded until I asked about them. So
I don't know when they're being taped now, though, so they're supposed to go in. So I'm sure Rosie will do it as soon as she can. I will tell you, she's trying to work with our tech department because the way that they have stuff now is very confusing. The way you have to look through stuff and you have to look for it through the date. So she was trying to work with them so that when they upload it, they could send her a link, and then she will put all of the links for just mine together so you all can do that, find it easier. So she will let you all know when that will be done too, because right now it is kind of complicated.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Linda?
Yes, thank you. Roy, you mentioned that there will be no rentals in these units.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm concerned about how that will be implemented. Will documents be given to the new homeowners, letting them know that there are no rentals to be had in the area?
So
how is that going to be controlled when we have these renter companies that are literally patrolling the subdivisions and taking note, and suddenly when a house goes on the market, they're right there to buy it up and then rent it out. So where will the controls be in terms of no rentals?
Okay, so your council member is probably going to be an expert on this. The whole discussion of that short-term rental and rental within the council has been so complicated.
Yes.
But I know that, for instance, if it's RM9 that goes with this, I think you can add STR, right? Like RM9, no short-term rental. Now, but I think that your question probably goes beyond short-term rental, because what I've seen is that I've actually seen this American Homes or whatever go buy an entire subdivision, and rent all the houses out. So I think it would have to be something within the HOA. I'm certainly not a legal person. John may have expertise on this, but there's got to be.
It would also have to be a promise that you rent to people and not companies. That's one way that I have talked to developers to make sure that they have in the document that they only rent to people. They don't rent to companies.
Well,
that
now
will help some.
Now you're creating a restrictive covenant, Council Lady Lee, that you're saying you don't want to be a part of, and have left us in the lurch.
Okay, so answer, going back to what she was talking about, that is one way that we have talked to the developers about being very careful and saying that they won't.
No, that's not the way to do it. That's not the way to deal with it.
Okay, so I'm not arguing back and forth. Just let me tell you what I have done.
Well, but you haven't done it. You have not done this. You have not done this. Are you saying
I have not talked to developers and told them this?
You have not created a legal enforceable document that keeps neighborhoods from becoming rental communities. The only way you're going to be able to do that is to create restrictive covenants that identify the percentage and type of rentals that can be done.
Okay, so I'm going to finish my conversation. I'm going to finish what I was saying. You can disagree with me, John, if you want to, and you can finish what you said after you finish, but you cut in on me. What I was saying is the conversation that I have had with developers, and yes, I have had that conversation. I did not say I had them to write something legal, as you tried to say that I did, that was incorrect. That is incorrect on your part. And going back to the other piece about renting, what has been done in the past is to put in the HOAs that a certain percentage of houses can only be rented, because it's also very hard once somebody buys a house and then say, for instance, they leave and can't sell it. And so then they just say, and they rent it out to somebody until they sell it. So that's kind of hard too. So that piece has been put into HOA documents.
Okay.
So that was my piece on there.
So is there some document that probably will be developed regarding not allowing developers to come in and buy up a whole subdivision? Is there anything in place that addresses that?
Well, I'm gonna, I don't want to, get in the middle of this argument. I think there's ways that we can do this that can satisfy everybody. For instance, I'll just give you an example. We've actually done zonings on properties where we actually put together the HOA documents, and we would give those documents to the council member, and the council member would actually take those documents with a check and record those documents, at the same time that this passed on third or final reading. So there's lots of ways we can do this. Okay. I think the intent here is someone's going to come and build a custom house and something special. It's not very likely that they would, rent that out. But I'm going to go back again. I'm going to sound like I'm conflicted. It's possible once a UDO is approved and once the zoning is in place that someone could come by the whole thing and do exactly what you don't want done. So we need to make sure that we have something in place.
I think so.
To make sure that the intent is followed and the intent is very clear what needs to be done here. I can work with the council member. I can work with Metro, with the attorneys that work with the council member and and I'm sure that she will have the ability to put something together, I hope, that will satisfy everyone.
That's the problem here, Roy, is that we work for months and even a year or more on these projects, and then the council lady doesn't follow through. She allows specific plans to move forward and to be enacted without the standards that we have as a community negotiated with the developer. And this most recent one, where the specific plan did not include any of them, was a church. I don't know if that was an issue of church.
Well, John, I don't think it's good to.
Well, that's fine. That's fine. So let me address this. Let me address this, Roy. The only way to have a legally.
I am not going to have arguing back and forth on my meetings. I am not going to have trying to focus on something else because somebody didn't like something, so they're using this mechanism as a voice to do that. I want us to get back to what we are talking on.
And this is what we're talking about.
If it's going to be an argument back and forth, we'll stop the meeting now and then we'll start it another time, because that's not what this is for.
This is what the community needs.
I'm going to ask you to go ahead and finish what you were saying. And if somebody else has questions, and John, if you have questions, but I don't want any arguing back and forth and then trying to bring up other things.
I'm just telling you, and you've learned a lot from us because you're regurgitating it, which is good. We like that. You're learning. What is needed on this project and all other projects that come to Antioch, Cane Ridge, Priest Lake are strong, specific plan, or in this case, urban design overlay with significant input from the community. We have to have legal documents, civil restrictions, that are created prior to the zoning being passed, and you do have control over that. And then we have to ensure follow through. We have to have a oversight entity that ensures that these agreements are kept. And that's what's been going wrong for the last 20 years in Antioch. So
okay, so we haven't even gotten that far on this particular one. So can we keep talking about this? Because we don't even know where we want to get on this. And I will tell you, whatever I do, I check with legal at the Metro office and try to have the best thing in place. And I do understand that some people don't like that. But let's get back to the questions specifically on this one. And Roy said that he would, if you all even decide that you want this, work with us to see if we can get some stuff in place to be able to do that. And so let's do that. Do I have anyone else have questions or 2 cents that they want to put on this?
Well, I've taken good notes, and I'm the type of person that I want to make everybody happy, and I'm confident that I can work with your council member, and I'm confident that she has the support with Metro Legal and Council Staff Office that will ensure that these are not rented, through some mechanism. So let me work on that, and I'll go back and I'll look at the UDO and see if maybe there's some languages that can be actually put within the UDO. That's a possibility as well. And I will go back and I'll look at the rest of the UDO to see if I see anything in there based upon what I'm hearing today that creates concerns. And a couple of those things could be percentage of open space, right? So I don't know if that document dictates percentage of open space, but it should. If you've got an urban design overlay and the intent is for it to be walkable and have open space and pocket parks, there should be something in here to ensure that adequate open space is provided. I'm going to look at that. I'm going to look at storm drainage to see, make sure that there's areas within the overall UDO, not just one section, for storm drainage, and anything else that y'all think. Maybe we should do something about traffic calming.
I think, yeah, we talked about that. We've got to do something about traffic calming.
Right,
I think Mr. Billy has a question.
Okay, Mr. Billy.
Thank you. Roy, I like your home plan. I got no problems at all with that. In nearly all of the community meetings that we've had, the subject of additional traffic in the schools, crowding, comes up.
Right.
Will you be required, or have you thought out any additional traffic other than the traffic calming, widening a street? I don't know, or something like that. Is that addressed yet, or will that be addressed in the future? Or how do you handle stuff like that?
You know what? I like that because if I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at the entire UDO, this UDO was put in place in 2005. You think we're the same city we were in 2005? No. So I'm going to make sure that there's triggers within the overall UDO that establishes, milestones of things which need to be done from a traffic perspective. So I like that. What was the other thing you said? There was something else other than traffic. I thought
widening of the roads or turn lanes or anything.
Right. So I guess that's all in the traffic realm, but I think that is something we should look at, not just from this development, but overall. Like when they did the development down there on the multifamily, council member, did they do any improvements to the traffic signals or any widening at Murfreesboro Road? Do you know if they did anything?
They didn't. They right up at that intersection.
Mm-hmm.
I have gone through that intersection so much that they did do some. They widened the road behind the Texaco light. They widened the road some, and they put turn lines there.
So that's the way. I mean, as these properties develop, there should be incremental improvements made, and so I want to see how that is managed within this overall UDO. And when we submit this document, it's not Metro Public Works anymore. It's like NDOT. I can't grasp that one, but maybe they should look at it and then add some measures within the overall UDO to address traffic, future traffic. So I've got that on my list.
Ms. Hart, I was typing that, and since time is going, I'm going to ask you if you want us to speak to it about like much needed project. If you can talk to me about what that project is, it might be something that we can put out there. I have a group that we're going to bring you all later that wants to talk to you about, they've got land and they want to talk to you about putting something up, but they didn't have in mind what, so they were going to ask you. So are you talking about that? Or what kind of project are you talking about?
Hi, I was still referring to, I did read your text, thank you, about responding to the fire station question. I did see that there's nothing in the budget for that this year. However, sometimes there's money under special projects. And so I didn't know if there was a way to communicate with the body, whoever that is, I have no idea, to see what type of special projects, maybe this could go under a special project. Even though it's a capital improvement, sometimes there's a way to expand the way people think about projects. Because in this particular area and over near Cane Ridge off of Bell Road, there's a special need for a firehouse, like a lot, because as you know, we just don't have one. And to wait another year in an area that's heavily saturated and also an area that's constantly under development, putting multiple units with multiple families in them and not to have a firehouse, I think hopefully nothing will happen, but if anything did happen, it could be catastrophic when we can be proactive, a little bit more proactive by working with the right people, whoever that is, I have no idea, and planning and transportation to try to help them understand why this is a critical need, whereas some other areas may already have a fire station and they're putting in a request for another one where we don't have one. And this is critical should anything ever happen in our area. So I wanted to see if there was a body of people we could communicate with to try to see if they would consider this project or get it approved.
Yes, and I can take that in for you and try to figure out exactly how we can get it and what the first steps are, besides me just putting it in and putting it in the budget, because we'd have to have a place for it to see where we wanted to put it and all of that. But I will tell you on January the 26th.
To have those conversations if they want to talk to people as to why something like that is critical to the improvement of the community as a whole. So whatever that looks like.
I'm sorry, say that again from the beginning.
I said I'm more than happy to communicate with whoever that body of people is to show them why this is a critical need for our area. I hate to say our area over some other areas, but I think that in our particular case, it's critical to the infrastructure when we don't have one.
Okay. And I will tell you all on the 26th is when I'm going to have that meeting. It's been scheduled when you have all of the different divisions in, like I'm going to have somebody there from the new transportation to actually talk about why the holdup at that light on Hamilton Church and Mount View and where that is when they keep saying we're going to get that. But they would also be the ones to talk about that, because I think all of that would be under that new transportation division, but I'll have to get it also in the budget. And I can talk to the, I would really like to talk with the rest of the council members right there in the Southeast too, to see if we can put that as one of the priorities as well.
Yes. Also, yeah, I hope that you do too. And if you open it up, I'd like to hear what the other councilmen have to say. The other thing that was mentioned was the widening of the roads, and everybody knows where this development is happening, and in that area, just in general, those streets are so narrow. And with all of the movement, because there's been a lot of different construction projects in that area, with all of the movement back and forth, it's very difficult for people who are transitioning to work outside of that area just to get through, and the traffic is horrible. I mean, everybody knows, but I'm just saying, if anybody wants to talk about real issues and how they're impacting us as a whole with something as simple as widening the roads, I think that the new transportation committee or whoever could look at us as a serious candidate for improvement in terms of infrastructure. And we shouldn't have to wait another year, because construction continues to happen currently, not even mentioning the amount of traffic that's going through today. And that was it. That's all I had.
Yes, ma'am. And I will tell you, one of the things that we have run into, especially because I've gotten all these roadblocks when it comes to that light, so I know what some of them are. And I'm sorry, I know it's time to get off now, but has to do with getting permission to take part of people's land when they do all of that. So I know that that's one of the things that takes a lot of time. I think I saw something right quick from Larry or Roy talking about, Larry or Billy talking about getting the council people together. I know when I first came on board, we did that kind of group meeting. And so when it has to do with now the interactive Zoom kind, it's difficult because it's got to be an open meeting type thing. But I don't know why we don't still have those others. I can talk to the council members, but the way things are, I think that'll have to be an in-person meeting. Okay, so it is getting, what time is it? Oh, it is actually a little after 7. It's actually a little after 7. So I'm thinking that we are going to have another meeting on this piece because we did not finish with the conversations all about this. I will, as I said, speak on also about that group meeting. I know we were going to have another meeting and we wanted several Zoom meeting, and we wanted several people to be on it. And we were told that the council people couldn't be on it, or if they could, then they couldn't talk but one, because of the law we have about meetings. So I will check into that again and see, because we have a lot of issues, because you just mentioned an area at Cane Ridge and Bell Road, and see, that's in another district. So there are a lot of issues that the different districts in this same area have in common. So we do need to talk about that. But I'm going to say now we will have some other meetings, and we will follow up on the things that we talked about today. And I will post, because there are some other meetings that are coming up, I will post them so that you all can see what those meetings are. I will post it as a heads up, even if I don't have the other flyer yet. And I'm sorry, was somebody saying something? Okay, I'm sorry, I thought somebody was asking a question. Okay, so Roy, we're gonna hear back from you, because we're gonna meet again to talk about the things that were brought up in the meeting.
Yeah, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take these documents and I'm going to work on them to get them in a form that would be ready to submit to the Planning Commission. I'm going to incorporate much of the stuff that we've talked about, so that when we meet again, I'll have something that I can present that's ready to be submitted.
Okay, but we'll come back and bring it back here before you submit?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, cool. Well, you all be careful. Make sure that you get your milk or bread or whatever you need, because they say that we are getting more weather tomorrow night. I want everybody to be safe. And remember, if you see something, that you can report it. So when your electricity is out or something has fallen and you can't get out or something like that, make sure you call in and you can report that too. Don't just wait around for somebody else to come and do it and clean that up for you. So thank you, everybody. You all have a very blessed night, and I will see you at the next meeting.
Thank you.
And Happy New Year. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Lee?
Yes.
I just want to take a minute and thank you for having these meetings. I've learned quite a bit at them. I really appreciate it. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Have a good evening, ma'am. Be safe.
You too. Bye-bye.